Thank you very much. Appreciate you all coming today. I heard there was some traffic, so we may have some late stragglers, but thanks for getting through that traffic. Can you guys, Rosalind, can you dim the lights, or is it all or nothing? Kind of on the lights. Just, it may make the screen a little easier to read. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's even better. Yeah. Is that good for everybody? So just so I understand, I'm just curious about the makeup of where you all come from. I've talked to a couple of folks from Sugar Land, so I understand there's maybe some municipal representation. What are the other, where do some of you come from? What do you do? I'm just curious. I mean, just a few people. I mean, over here, what? Anybody want to venture as to what you do? Okay, municipal. Okay. Any developers? Any other developers? You guys? I talked to you a little bit. And then, are the rest of you consultants of one type or another for engineering or?
I'm a freelance journalist.
Okay, journalist. Somebody over here said?
Engineering.
Engineering. Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. Good. Any other journalists here? No. Okay. Are you actually reporting today?
No.
Okay. Great. All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That helps a little bit. So Springwoods Village is 1,800 acres at the confluence of I-45 and the Hardy Toll Road, as this picture shows. So here's the Hardy Toll Road coming up to I-45, and Springwoods Village is this land that sits on the western side of I-45. It was purchased in 1961 and held out of development until 2008, when we sold 386 acres to what it was eventually known as the ExxonMobil for their new campus, which is now under construction. And that in itself is quite a story. To close on a sale of land of that size and magnitude in December of 2008, 2 months after Hurricane Ike and the collapse of Lehman, was notable. But there you had a buyer, an all-cash buyer requiring no financing. So that makes quite a bit of a difference. And we have never had any debt on this land. So we're kind of unique as a large land owner and master community developer in that regard. It allows us to be very picky and choosy about when to start, and then once we start, who we sell land to. But this is the pattern that we utilize across the country. We have land assets in Colorado and Florida, as well as here in the Houston area, and so our goal is really this, as Rosalind said, this transformative type of development of these large land assets that happen to be typically on transportation corridors in the path of growth, and really changing those into mixed-use master planned communities. So here's a rendering of our master plan, and I'll explain it a little bit in a minute. But landing the Exxon campus, which is highlighted there in the brown at the northern part of the property, at the same time as the Grand Parkway started to come to life, was really quite unique for us, and it positions us in a way, in a kind of an unprecedented way, to have that kind of an engine, a campus of 10,000 employees, and this enhanced transportation corridor to make the east-west connections to some of the residential centers, really helps us and gives us the opportunity to create this mixed-use community from day one. The master plan for the community is organized fairly simply. You see that we have these park and drainage corridors here, 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 and there's two more to the west. Those follow the natural drainage patterns of the property. They are being developed by our district, the Harris County Improvement District number 18, as linear park and stormwater management, regional stormwater management systems. Obviously, they all flow into the Spring Creek, which is the northern boundary of the property. They're a very important organizing element for the project in that if you live or work anywhere in the community, it's not a far walk along a nice sidewalk to a trail that's in this park corridor. Trails then take you northward to Spring Creek, and where you can get on that greenway system and go for many, many miles, as you know. So it really creates a nice amenity for us to tie into. So this is the Exxon campus, which we've designed the community around here. And so the heart of the community is really here. It's what we call our town center, which is about a 60-acre area that will be the most intensely developed, with a broad mix of uses from residential to retail to restaurants, hotels, office space, and so forth. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a few minutes here. Then arrayed around this town center, we have sites that front I-45 and front the Grand Parkway, primarily for the major employment types of uses, other corporate campuses and so forth, within close proximity to this town center, just like Exxon is. And then on the western edge here, we start with more pure residential neighborhoods of one type or another, and range of densities. And those densities will tend to decrease as you move to the west, increase as you move towards and into the town center area. So that's the simple plan. You also see here a real network of streets. There's a grid of streets in the town center. In other areas, somewhat of a modified grid. But the road network is all about giving people choices in terms of ways in and ways out of the community. We have already sold land in Springwoods Village for our first residential neighborhoods. About 500 homes in 4 different product types, including luxury apartments by Martin Fine, located right there. And then just north of that, a neighborhood for smaller townhomes and single-family detached homes by Sullivan Brothers Builders, laid out in somewhat of a T&D neighborhood format. And then just north of that, this area, which we've sold to Taylor Morrison for 51 a little larger homes. So in this way, we will have 4 different residential product types from day one. The Sullivan neighborhood already has 20 contracts. They don't have models or anything yet, so it's sort of a testament, I think, to the interest in living here in this kind of a community. Half of those contracts are probably people that are going to be working at that Exxon campus, but the other half are quite a wide range of people. But it seems it's a little remarkable that they've had that much success early on. They probably tapped out the early adopters that are willing to do that without seeing a model or anything. But it's a strong testament that we're really pleased with. We will have residents living here in Springwoods Village before the end of this year. So in addition to the 10,000 jobs at the Exxon campus, we've also sold land to Southwestern Energy in that site that's highlighted there up on I-45 for their new corporate headquarters, and that construction has already started. They will have about 1,500 people there by the end of next year. Their master plan actually doubles that to about 3,000 people over time. And then just south of that, we've sold another parcel of about 10 acres to another company whose name we can't mention quite yet. They are in the energy sector, and it is a major company that you would all recognize. So really by 2016, we'll have over 12,000 people working here in Springwoods Village. Pretty remarkable way to start the project. Now, a little bit about the town center. So we've just announced, you may have seen it a few weeks back, phase 1 of our town center, which will bring hotels, restaurants, shops, and more office and multifamily residential into the heart of the community. It's all in this area that's highlighted, so it's just a portion of the 60 acres. And it's all organized around a major central public plaza space that's shown in this picture here. So we have a major public plaza here that ties into our lake and park system which runs from the south to the north. Flanking the plaza is a full-service hotel to the south, a mixed-use building to the north with retail at the street level and office above. Here is shown one of two restaurant buildings that would have views out onto the lake and park system. And then from this plaza space moving to the west is our main street, which runs through the heart of the town center. The development of this main street will be implemented in phases, kind of building block by building block, as shown here. The concept is that we will build multi-story buildings, probably in the order of 8 to 10 stories on this side of the street, 5 to 6 stories on this side of the street, all of which will have retail at the street level, and that's how this town center will be executed. We actually started some planning for the town center a number of years ago, and under an approach of having it be an anchored type of a town center with some sort of department store anchor. And we pursued Nordstrom for quite a while, and almost made the deal with Nordstrom to anchor this town center. And then an opportunity came up for them to take the former Sears box at the Woodlands Mall, and that's what they're moving forward with. We were disappointed. Obviously, for a company like Nordstrom, that's a fairly rational and obvious decision, but it changed our plan on how to execute the town center into this approach of incremental, block by block, with office buildings having retail embedded into the ground level. So this phase one of the town center, we're hoping to make all of our deals with the various land buyers and developers this year. Construction will be underway next year, and this town center will open in the middle of 2015. It's an important amenity for us to put in place for all the people that are working and living here in Springwoods Village, and it will obviously grow over time. Now, we've been pursuing and making other deals, which will be announced soon, for a variety of uses, which include some medical facilities, really a hospital in this area here, some additional hotels in this area here at the western edge of the town center. So we'll have a full-service hotel here in the heart of the town center, phase one, and over here on Holsworth Road, we'll have a couple of other kinds of hotels, such as select service and extended stay. Eventually, we see a major conference hotel here at the southern or at the western end of Main Street in the town center. So we really see 4 to maybe 5 hotels in Springwoods Village. If you look at the employment projection for Springwoods Village, which is somewhere around 35,000 people, we feel like that, it will require more than 4 or 5 hotels to support that much employment, but that's about as much room as we have for hotels. So there will clearly be others developed down in this area. If you look at the Woodlands trade area, I think there are some 12 or 13 hotels that surround or are within or surround the Woodlands trade area, and they're at about 45,000 employment. All of those hotels are at 70% plus occupancy. So what we're doing here is really creating a whole new trade area for things like hotels, as well as restaurants and so forth. And then we have these other sites that are also available for purchase and are listed through a brokerage company. And so we're beginning some strategies to look at a site like this, for example, for another type of a corporate campus user. Here's the Southwestern Energy here, and that's a similar kind of site with I-45 visibility and access, for example. And then my last slide, and I just mainly wanted to open up for questions here. Just a little bit about what does Springwoods Village mean for Northwest Houston. We feel like the overall economic impact from Springwoods Village is really going to rise the tide in this region in a never before seen type of a way. The build out of the community is about 5,000 residential units, 8 million square feet of commercial, another 1 million square feet of retail and restaurant, and 4 to 5 hotels. and this is the 2,000 acres here. It includes some land that comes down to Spring-Stubner Road. We had an economic impact study done by the Perryman Group a few years back to look at the gross and annual impact of Springwoods Village, and you can see some of the numbers here. They're pretty phenomenal. $5.5 billion annually of gross economic impact in the Harris County region, and about $1 billion to Montgomery County. The county line is Spring Creek, which is our northern boundary. And then in terms of annual fiscal revenues from taxes, $400 million a year, this is at build out, to the state of Texas, and $200 million per year in tax revenue to the local taxing entities. So Harris County, school districts, fire districts, and so forth. So it's pretty phenomenal. A couple of other things that I just want to touch on. We kind of have our own little master plan for the community, and we use that as a guide in selling land to end users. 90% of the community is built by people that we sell land to. So either entities like ExxonMobil that are building for their own account, or merchant home builders or merchant office builders that are build something and then eventually sell it. The last 10% are areas that we may develop ourselves, typically either retail or office. Some of that 10% is also probably land donations for things like fire stations and libraries and other civic uses. By the way, I didn't mention it, but we're in the process of doing that on a site right here for a new Spring Fire and Cypress Creek EMT station, which will be located right here and start construction next year. So this is relatively centrally located to serve Springwoods Village as well as the surrounding areas, which are expected to grow. In addition to our master plan, then what we've done is we've written a set of development standards for sustainability, we call them, and they are enabled through a covenant on all the land, so that everyone that buys land here has to comply with these development standards and guidelines. We administer them through a design review committee, which we run. The design review committee is made up of some local architects, landscape architects, and engineers that help us to work with the various land buyers to make sure that they're complying with these development standards. The development standards are fairly rigorous. They have requirements for the typical things like good architecture and good materials, good kind of lasting, timeless materials. But they go beyond that and have some fairly serious and unique requirements for sustainability for every project here, so that we think when this is built out, Springwoods Village will be one of the most sustainable, complete communities, really in America. For the home builders, what that means that they have to build homes that comply with LEED Gold type of standards, or something that's very equivalent to it. That's pretty unique. They've done some of that in the Austin area, but not a lot of it in the Houston area. So we had to find some home builders that were willing to do that, and Sullivan Brothers and Taylor Morrison are, and Martin Fine as well. For the commercial buildings, they're required to all gain LEED Gold certification. So they're fairly rigorous standards, and they're broken down into design, construction, and then operations. There's a section where the buyers have to do certain reporting to us to confirm that they're continuing to maintain the properties in these sustainable manners. In the design of not only the private development, but all of the public infrastructure here, which is being done through our district, Harris County Improvement District 18, we're utilizing a low-impact design approach. So along all of our roadways, we have bioswale systems to try to really clean the water up, much more than would typically be done before it enters Spring Creek. So we're doing some innovative things there. We've even installed photovoltaics on the roof at our water plant. We have a water plant and a wastewater treatment plant. And for the public infrastructure, we're integrating things like photovoltaics as well. So some fairly unique things here that may stimulate some of your questions. And at this point, I'd just like to open it up for any questions that you have. Yes?
So can infrastructure in, or was it the improvement district, or was it a combination of both of those?
So I don't know if everybody heard the question. The question is, did we use MUDs to implement the public improvements or some other approach? Our Harris County Improvement District 18 is actually a management district, so it's very broad under the statutes. It does everything MUDs can do and more. And so we just utilized that vehicle to execute all of the public infrastructure here. We were really fortunate that when we made the sale to Exxon at the end of 2008, the very next series of months, January through May, the legislature was meeting, 2009, and not many people really knew about what was happening, and so we were able to get a bill sponsored and passed through the legislature to form that district, because they do require formation through the legislature, because they're fairly extensive. So the way that it works in the early days is because there's really no property assessed valuation yet, but we have to build that infrastructure in order to get that to happen. We have to make capital advances, pretty hefty capital advances under funding agreements to that district, and eventually we get paid back as the district's able to do bonding. And we've just recently been able to do one bond issue, a small bond issue, and are planning more in the coming years. Over here, yes.
Which school district is this?
Good question. We're in 2 school districts. So up to about right there, we are in the Spring ISD. So all of this is in Spring ISD. And then this piece here, it's about 300 acres, is in Klein. Now, we have in the master plan designated a site right here for an elementary school, which Spring wants to build, and I think will build in the coming years as soon as they feel the time is right to have a bond issue of their voters. And so that would be a Spring elementary school. For Klein, they have a new school not too far down Spring Stubner Road. So I don't think at the current time they believe they need to build any schools in this land here. But if they do, we would certainly work with them. We really see these things like schools and the fire station that I described before, or libraries, things like that as really important parts of these kind of mixed-use communities, because we want them to be as complete as possible. Let's see in the back, in the first row. Yeah.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. One, is the city of Houston involved in the taxing area, or is it just Harris County?
It's just Harris County. We're in the ETJ of Houston, but not in the city limits.
Okay. And the other question was, I'm assuming that most of that was wooded, right? The land you had?
Yes.
Okay. And so when you have to cut down some trees, but yet you're doing, making out, or you're leaving quite a few trees for the housing areas and all that?
Yeah, thank you. So the question is about all the trees, and you're right. This 2,000 acres was essentially a pine forest. There's some hardwoods too, but we've been managing that pine forest for the last 20 years, to maintain its health and so forth, and frankly to keep the land in agricultural tax status. And so it's a relatively healthy pine forest. What we're doing to try to maintain as much of that as possible is that in these linear park corridors, obviously some trees have to be lost for the detention and drainage ponds. However, a lot of trees are preserved in those kind of corridors. Here we have a 150-acre area where all the trees will be preserved. It's what we're calling our nature preserve. It will have a nature center up here out of the floodplain, a series of trails that runs through this nature preserve and that connect into the Spring Creek Greenway. And then the third layer is that along all of the public streets, as a part of our development standards, we've laid down what we call tree preserves along the roads. So along the highway frontages in the Grand Parkway, it's a 75-foot wide tree preserve. On the next level of streets, the major streets, such as Springwoods Village Parkway or Holsworth or Mossy Oaks, it's a 50-foot wide tree preserve. And then when you get down into the neighborhood scale, it's about a 30-foot tree preserve. So in this way, we're trying to do, similar to what they did up in the woodlands, maintain a belt of trees along the public roadways. Yes?
Two questions. One, since you are doing a management district, most management districts, you tax just commercial
Yes. Yes. So the question was taxing district on just commercial or commercial and residential, and the answer is both.
And the other question is, how much variances or other negotiation process did you have to go through with the city of Houston as you are there today with regard to subdivision regulations, public works standards, et cetera, to accomplish the kind of environment?
Yeah, so the question is variances we had to pursue to accomplish this more mixed-use dense type of pattern, either with the city or the county. Most of our work has been with the county on the roads because we're trying to do some different things with roads here and make the community more walkable. For example, right now we're working with the county in this town center area where we'll have public streets coming through the town center on a way to implement angle-in parking, which is not something Harris County has really ever done or had before. We're still working through the details on that. I think one of the scenarios is that the road bed itself, would be maintained by Harris County, but the angle-in parking would be maintained by our district. And that's one potential solution around it. We're still working through the details, so we don't have the absolute answer to that question quite yet. In terms of setbacks, we really haven't run into any difficulties yet on that, partly because we have these tree preserves anyway. So, we don't have development right out at the right-of-way lines, except in the, in the town center area there. Do you mind if I cancel the scan? It always seems to do that when you don't want it to. Other questions? Okay, here in the front row.
Two related questions. The first one is, how many apartments are you envisioning? And secondly, are you envisioning any apartments or condominiums in the town center itself?
So two questions there on apartments. How many total, and do we envision them in the town center? I'll take the second one first. Okay, here we go. So again, town centers in this area here. And yes, absolutely, we have plans for residential multifamily rental in the town center, as well as condos. That's really important because I don't think there's much doubt the town center will be successful at lunchtime, given all these employees, around it. But you also want it to be successful at night and on the weekends. So while there'll be residential over in here, it's really important to us to have a lot of residential, higher density residential here in this town center area. So for example, one of our first deals in the town center is with Martin Fine, who's building this project here also, by the way, for a high density, about 70 DUs per acre multifamily project. This will actually be, his plan is to build that to really a condo standard with concrete construction so that it could be converted to condos. It'll probably start as rentals. We also envision another site right here, which could be a good, fairly high rise, at least 10 stories, condo residential tower. And certainly the Woodlands has validated that those types of products are attractive even up in the suburbs. There were some other questions in the back there. Yes?
Early on, there was some discussion about water reuse for irrigation. Did you have the TCQ and obtaining the appropriate permits?
So the question is about obtaining permits for water reuse. We're still working on that. Yes, we want to. We have a wastewater treatment facility here, and as a part of our overall sustainability, we would like to deliver the reclaimed water for non-potable use. We haven't finalized all the necessary permits to do that. We're still evaluating the costs to do that. That said, we're already installing, when we build roads, we're installing a third pipe system to have that in place to allow for it and not have to disrupt landscaping when it happens. Were there other questions in the back group? Yes?
I know some people who currently work for Exxon, but they would want to do a reverse commute. Are there any plans working with any transit agencies? For example, Metro has a 222 Grand Parkway, Park and Ride, but in this case they could go the other way. What are y'all doing as far as that? Because one of the people they're concerned, they love working with Exxon, they've been there a number of years, but they like where they're situated, and they're single also.
Uh-huh.
How is there any transit?
Yeah, thank you very much. So this question is regarding transit integration for either Exxon or the whole community. And I'm glad you asked that question. There are a couple things underway. Exxon is working directly with Metro on the potential for buses that would pick people up in more of the central city area and bring them to work here. They may be private buses that somehow utilize park and rides that Metro has in various locations. We also, we're within the boundaries of Metro, and so, eventually as really demand warrants, there will be Metro buses that come up here to Springwoods Village. But Exxon is working very actively on a mass transit solution for their employees, both near-term and long-term. It was interesting when they were designing their campus. It's a very large campus, lots of people, right? And if you really play out the typical parking standards, for that many people, it's a lot of parking too. And then you start to realize, and they made a commitment to build the parking in parking structures, not surface lots. But then you start to realize what that costs. And so it was kind of interesting to watch that process evolve within their company, because obviously it's a very driving culture within that company and just all around here, I think. But they've been working real hard since they realized all of that to come up with ways for, to make that option available for people. On the light rail front, we and Exxon have had a series of meetings with Metro about the possibility of the North Line light rail, which currently I think terminates at the Greens Point area. It's not there yet, but it's in the plan, right? And what would it take to bring it up the I-45 corridor and bring it into Springwoods Village? Because again, if you think about it, if you have 35 to 40,000 people working here in a relatively concentrated area, it might make sense to bring that light rail up to it. They're actually pretty interested in that. They're doing some studies on the potential ridership with that. I think it's a long-term kind of a thing, but we really would like to work with them on that. And so, in fact, in the plan, you see this little black circle with a T in it, and that's indicating a potential location for a transit center. So this would be a place for buses and light rail to come to. There'd be parking there. And so it could accommodate people going in either direction. Say you live here, but you work downtown. And so you could come here to this transit center and get a bus or light rail maybe someday and go downtown. So that's in the plan. It's a very important part of the integration of mass transit into this kind of a community. Down here. I'll come back to you, but yes.
Yeah, two questions. One regarding development of sidewalks. Suburban Houston, we don't have many sidewalks. and because of budgetary problems in the state, ebb and flow, school districts minimize their transportation service. So kids have to walk without sidewalks. Will this development give some kind of sidewalk development, or will it be the tradition of suburban Houston? And second question
okay.
Is there some kind of recreational park that's going to be part of this development?
Recreational what? Park? Okay, sure. So there are two questions here, one on sidewalks and one on parks. I would say that the plan here is completely different than what's typically done in suburban Houston. So all the streets, each and every street will have a detached sidewalk with it. So that means there's a tree lawn between the curb line and the sidewalk to try to help protect the pedestrians and make for a little better pedestrian experience on a sidewalk, as opposed to when sidewalks just get attached to the curb and alongside of kind of a mean street. Not such a good experience, right? So we've made that commitment. All the streets that get built have either sidewalks that are detached and perfectly parallel to the street, or in some cases, those sidewalks are really more like trails, and they meander a little bit along the road, maybe into that tree preserve area and in and out of that tree preserve area. When you're able to drive out here and you come in Springwoods Village Parkway, you'll see that as you drive along the road here, you'll see that kind of meandering trail in the tree belt zone on the south side of Springwoods Village Parkway as an example. So yes, absolutely. All the road system is also an important system for pedestrians. to be able to be on the sidewalks. And those sidewalks are typically a minimum of 6 feet wide and more often 8 feet wide. Those sidewalks connect then into trails that are in these linear park systems. So all of these, that, and there's one here, there's another one here. All of those linear park systems have trails in them. And so the sidewalks connect with the trails in the park. And so, for example, if you were on, say you were on a trail in this park system, when you are on the trail in the park and you're wanting to cross this street, which is Mossy Oaks, and continue up into the nature preserve, say, at these kind of locations here and here, from day one we build in grade separation for the pedestrians. So they go in a tunnel under the road. Never have to worry about crossing busy streets. And all that would connect in with something like, like this school here, for example, so that there's a way to maybe, send your kid to school on their bike. What a concept. Yes, you had a question over here. Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, I partly answered that. These are all parks. All these systems, they not only accommodate the stormwater, but they're parks. They're linear parks. So they'll have areas, lawn areas for active uses. They'll have trails going through them and so forth. Now, a little neighborhood might have its own little park. And this one does, for example, this T&D neighborhood has its own little park. So there's a number of hierarchy levels of parks, let's say, in neighborhoods, the larger parks in the regional system, and then this 150 acres is really a park. It's a nature preserve. You can go in there and get on trails that take you through forests, take you to wetland areas that are down here that we're enhancing, ponds. It's really an educational park environment. Yes?
Questions about Exxon. The rumors at the time that they bought this were that they cut a deal, or someone cut a deal with the government to have the Grand Parkway open both directions by a certain date, and I don't know whether that's true or not, but what's the latest on actually getting the Grand Parkway from 290 all the way over to 59, the actual date that you're being told? And secondly, is Exxon, they're building, I presume, a lot of that land is in the floodplain. Are they building a floodplain, or are they going to have a park and a preserve on their own, or how are they doing that?
Okay, there's a couple of questions here. One is about the Grand Parkway timing, and then the other is about Exxon's campus. I can't tell you a lot of things about some of that because, the way things are with a company like Exxon. But you see in this rendering here little hints at what their campus is like. So their campus is very concentrated in the center of the property out of the floodplain. And you're right in that this area down here between where the campus is and where Spring Creek is in the floodway, and there's no building of buildings in the floodway or the floodplain. And there are also, this campus is quite a distance from Springwoods Village Parkway, this road here. They made a decision that they wanted to have a very concentrated urban type of campus that really mimics a college campus, and it also gave them a lot of privacy, and probably security too, frankly. So and they've done that because they feel like they need to do something different than what's typically done with these kind of corporate campuses, which is usually pretty spread out and often a greenfield site and so forth. They're designing this, they say, for someone who's in the 8th grade today. That they're really thinking way ahead about what kind of environment is going to help them to attract and retain the next waves of talent. Right now they're kind of heavy on the people my age and a little older side, and they know that they need to get themselves positioned to sustain, the top talent and attract and sustain the top talent. So we give them a lot of credit for that. The other thing, and that I want to just answer with this before I talk about the Grand Parkway, is we're really seeing both here and in our project in the Colorado area, which is called Ridgegate. It's along I-25 in South Denver, and we've been developing that for about 12 years now. We started that project with a major regional medical center, and we just recently, earlier this year, sold about 50 acres to Charles Schwab, who's building a 5,000 person campus in this community. So I think what we're seeing here is that these corporations are starting more and more to choose to build their new campuses and embed them in a master planned community. Why? For what I talked about before, we think it gives them some advantages in recruiting and retaining the younger, the next generations of workforce that don't want to be quite as dependent upon their car. So, if you're working in this Exxon campus, you might choose to live somewhere here such that you could just walk to work or ride a bike to work. And they do have Exxon has a pretty big biking contingent. We've already been coordinating and communicating with them about how they get to work. As I mentioned, about half of the early sales in this neighborhood here are Exxon employees. And some of those might be people that are entering the empty nester stage, don't want or need a big house, big yard anymore, want to live close to work, for maybe that last 10 years of work, that type of thing. But some of them are younger people as well. So it's all different types. But I do think that this is real. This trend of corporate campuses embedding into master plan communities is an important trend to watch, I think. And we think, we offer some real advantages to those kind of companies that are looking ahead like that. I think Southwestern Energy is. We've got another great large site here that could be another major corporate campus, again, right there at the town center. You can get on the park system here and get up into the trails and get on the Spring Creek Greenway. So it's really a pretty neat environment for people. On the Grand Parkway, what's happening is that the contract has been awarded now to a very large consortium to build the segment that you're talking about from 290 to all the way over to 59 at Kingwood. So that's been awarded. Construction has started. If you drove out here today and you hit this spot on 45 where the Grand Parkway crosses it, you'll see that they've cleared all the trees there. And they're off and running. So the timeline that we understand is that you'll be able to drive basically from 59 to 59 by the end of 2015, maybe a little bit sooner, but the end of 2015. Now that said, this segment right in here along Springwoods Village is one of their early action areas because we donated 125 acres to them in the right-of-way there. They've got a lot of other areas where they're still working on right-of-way acquisition, so they've instructed the contractor to start work in this area here. So we may very well have at least the frontage roads built on the Grand Parkway and open for driving, to this is the Holsworth intersection, so by the middle of next year even. So they're making pretty quick progress with all that. It's actually fairly simple to build. There's not a lot of utilities with it. It's just roads, right? What happens here where Holsworth Road comes to the Grand Parkway is that the Grand Parkway's on the ground. Holsworth flies over it with a bridge. And so we're building that bridge through our district right now. What you'll be able to do, say you were coming on I-45 South, you'd get on the direct connect ramp, which will be built phase 1, and you'd come down along here. You'd be able to then get on the frontage road and run on the frontage road and come up to this elevated intersection and turn into Springwoods Village, either right or left. And that's a free exit. There's no toll for that. First exit is like Beltway 8 west of 45. And that same kind of pattern happens over here where Springwoods Village Parkway comes down and crosses over the Grand Parkway. So we have 2 interchanges on the Grand Parkway for access into and out of Springwoods Village. Another question? Yes.
You talked a little bit about the town center. Are you actually going to build the town center, or are you going to get multiple participants to build those buildings that make it up?
Yeah, so the question is on the town center, how are we going to execute that? That slide doesn't want to seem to go back, but so we're involved in kind of master planning that town center. We have a certain vision on how we want it to be, feel, look, and so forth. And we do that through our development standards and a special overlay for the town center. But the majority of it will be executed by us selling land to other groups. For example, there's a group that we'll be selling land to for the full-service hotel, which is right on that plaza that I showed you. And they'll build and own and operate that hotel. We'll be selling land to an office developer that'll build the office buildings with the retail down at the bottom level. We'll sell land to a multifamily developer. They'll build that project and maybe they'll sell it once it stabilizes. Now, we may participate in some of those deals, like particularly like say an office building, where maybe we put the land in with the developer and participate in the profits as they come. There might be some of that as well. But we don't tend to build a whole lot of vertical ourselves. When we do, oftentimes it's with a partner that's more organized for that. We're a pretty small group, and so we try to stay focused on managing these large land assets, creating visions for these master plan communities, getting them entitled as necessary, depending upon where you are, and then executing, the community infrastructure and selling land to others that fit in with our master plan. That's kind of how we do it. There was a question in the back there. Yes?
What's your expected projected build out here?
Yeah, good question. So the question is, how long is it going to take to build this? If we didn't have something like that Exxon campus as an engine, it could take a while. But having that as an engine and then adding into it Southwestern Energy and some of these others, I think is really going to accelerate the build out here. My projection is it's probably in the 15-year time frame to build this out. In Colorado, just by way of comparison, in Colorado, we've been at that for about 10 to 12 years now, and we've got about just a fraction of it done. That project's going to take a lot longer, let's just say. So I think about 15 years, from now, and this could be built out. I think it's going to move pretty quickly. As I mentioned, there it is again. That just doesn't want to go away. I think we're going to be selling land right here for a hospital facility. So, that's going to do nothing but try to, I think, accelerate this community's development. Obviously, the Grand Parkway is a great benefit, to be able to connect to that transportation network and to the residential centers that it goes to, I think is also helping to accelerate the development here. Other questions? Tapped them out. We're just about at 1 o'clock anyway, so about the right time. Well, I appreciate you all coming today, and happy to field any questions one-on-one if you want for a little while.